Here we are for another virtual hallway chat, and I'm really honored today that I have an opportunity to spend some time chatting with our Vice President Administration, Roger Couldrey, who is one of my bosses. For people who don't know, I get two because I'm super lucky, and I'm very fortunate to have Roger as one of those two people that I report to on a regular basis. And Roger, I want to say thank you. This is kind of a bittersweet conversation because it's an opportunity for us to talk, which we actually get to do fairly often. But at the end of a career here at McMaster University, so we'll get into that in a few minutes, but can I ask you if you would introduce yourself to everybody here, just in case somebody watching this does not know who you are, please?
Sure. Roger Couldrey, I'm the VP Administration at Mac. I've been in the role for about a dozen years now, and before then I was on the board at the university going back as far as 1993 or 4, can't remember which.
Wow. So, which is fascinating. And how often is it that somebody who sits on the board of an institution actually ends up becoming an employee at that institution, Roger? How did that come about?
First of all, how often does it happen? I've come across probably 3 or 4 other people that have done a similar thing in my role across the universities over the last 10 or 15 years. So it does happen. In my case, it happened because I think I had a great experience on the McMaster board, a really good experience. It was a very positive and worthwhile activity on my part. I got to know Karen Belair, who was my predecessor, very well. And tell you a story that not many would know. Karen used to prepare a succession plan every year for, and we still do it, a succession plan for the finance folk. And Karen used to say to me, she used to bring this plan to the audit committee. And she used to say to me when she brought the plan, the best successor, Roger, for me, Karen, in this role, is you, Roger. So in 2009, she called me to say that I'm leaving, she said, and it's time for the succession plan to kick in, and you're up to bat.
That's quite unusual and very flattering, I'm sure, or perhaps it wasn't flattering, I don't know, but for you probably was very flattering that somebody thought of you as a great person to step into a position. And I mean, obviously that there's so many different things that go into changing positions or changing careers. So were you ready for change at that time, Roger, when this opportunity came up, or did you have to really sit down hard and think about it?
No, it was a really easy decision. But in some ways it was, so my background is in banking, as probably most of you know, but I left BMO to join the electronic post office, which BMO actually owned 50% of. And from there, I went into an internet startup venture with one of my fellow executives at ePost, and we set up something called Community Lend. And Community Lend was a typical internet startup. It was poor in cash, but rich in what I would like to think was talent, but at the very least determination. And so, you know, at the point where this opportunity came up, was one of the low points in our cash cycle. So it was attractive in those sense.
I think that's really cool. So, I mean, one of the things where you and I obviously intersect within the roles that we have is around IT. And obviously coming into this position, the IT was under your umbrella as well. But the startup piece gave you some insights into some of those activities. And I imagine with ePost and potentially, though I don't know this for certain, some of the work that you did with BMO as well. Has IT always been a component of your oversight and work? No. So was the startup the first real kind of, oh my gosh, no. Tell me.
No, my first exposure to the IT environment was when the bank asked me to run the contact centers across North America. And the contact centers at that point were undergoing a multi-million-dollar investment in IT technology, call center technology that fortunately, I had somebody working with me who was extremely talented. And so he looked after most of the technology. But you can't help but have some of the knowledge, some of the expertise rub off on you. So that was really where it started. And then, of course, with ePost, I mean, that was an internet play, as was Communityland. And again, good people around you, but you can't avoid but have some of it rub off on you. So really, Gayleen, that's the extent of my IT expertise, with which I've come to plague you over the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, I don't think of it as a plague at all. One of the things I've really appreciated is you are really always that person who I can count on to ask really great questions and make me go, that's a really good question. And so you've helped us to push ourselves farther with the things that we've been able to accomplish from a technology perspective. And many people may or may not know that the way I came to McMaster, yourself and David Wilkinson were the two individuals who ultimately hired me on. But it was very much an outcropping of an activity that the two of you had undertaken and overseen called the IT Services Review. And that in and of itself was quite a learning opportunity, wasn't it?
Well, it was an idea that we had that we thought would be worthwhile. It wasn't a unique idea. We actually copied it from Lancaster University in the UK, where my counterpart had told me that she had done a number of functional service reviews as a way to improve cross-campus activities. So we built it on there. Of course, we'd never done it before, other than in an academic sense. So David obviously had that experience. And it took us a long while to write out the terms of reference. It took us even longer to find the members of the group. And I spent many days calling across North America, looking for the right people to run that review. And we were very fortunate. We got a crackerjack team of people to do that review. And I was expecting them to contribute, but I had absolutely no idea how much they would contribute. The dedication and the determination, and then the quality of the report. It was incredible. So there was a handful of people across North America, including people at the university and including our own faculty members, participated in that, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. And I think David would tell you the same thing if he was on the call. I don't want to speak for him, but one of the best things that we've ever done. And you're right. It's led to the IT strategic plan. I'm sure you'll excuse me if I always remember it as the IT services.
Well, my strategic plan hasn't won an award, but your IT services review did win a Cabo Award. So, congratulations. And it is really great when these amazing teams come together from outside of the institution, but across the sector. That's one of the wonderful things about higher education, is you're more than aware. There really is a collegial, cooperative, and collaborative approach to helping us all further our causes. It really has been my experience. Of course, I'm on the higher ed IT side of that, but my experience is that people really are quite open to coming in and sharing their wisdom and information and helping to create that opportunity of learning to assist colleagues at another institution should the situation arise. So so it is really, it's been a fascinating, being on this side of it, it's been really fascinating to see how that's turned into something, a momentum, or what I like to tell people, a movement, where, our IT strategic plan is a movement, but it all started with that IT services review and yourself and David. So you should be really proud of that. I'm really pleased to be part of it, frankly.
We were delighted when you applied for the job, and I don't know whether I've ever told you this, but when you did your first interview, David and I looked at each other and smiled.
Oh, did you?
Yes, we were fairly confident that we'd found our incumbent. It's something for the group here that are listening. You are a really good example, Gayleen, of selfless commitment to the sector. You put more hours and effort into contributing to the IT sector, but also the university sector. And I'm first of all, commendations to you, because you do a really good job of it. But and I know you're not unique. Some of your peers do exactly the same thing. I know that. But for those listening, it's one of the things that I used to do as well. And I have to say that from a personal development perspective, from a career growth perspective, they are some of the very best experiences you can ever have. So if you get the opportunity, well, I'll tell you another little story. One of our honorary doctorates one year stood up on the stage addressing the graduates for that year, and he talked about the 20-second moment. 20-second moment. And I can't remember the guy's name now. He ran a marketing business, as I recall. But his point was that in your life, and particularly your working life, there are awkward moments that occur. And those awkward moments occur when somebody, such as your boss, might say, I really need somebody to take on this really tough project. And there's an awkward 20 seconds that occurs where nobody says anything, because nobody's quite sure whether they should volunteer or not. So what this guy said was, I looked for the 20-second moment. And whenever the 20-second moment appeared, I put up my hand. He said, and much of the time I had no idea what I was immersing myself in, but I learned a ton every time I did it. And he said, as I look back on my career, this was him, not me personally, but this was him. He said, as I look back on my career, I think about those 20-second moments, and times I put my hand up and the benefits that I got from those. So I throw that in just as a thought.
Thank you. And thanks for your kind words earlier. Yeah, and I concur completely. I think one of the things that has kept me in higher ed for as long as I've been in it, 22 years now, has been not just the opportunity of doing the good work that I do for the institution that I'm aligned with. Obviously, that's a critical component, and the joy that I get out of that. It really is those opportunities outside of the institution as well. We're quite fortunate in higher education because we do get these really interesting cross-sector opportunities that can arise. So I'll think about that now whenever I have those moments. I'll think about the 20-second moment just alongside of you, Roger, as some good wisdom that you passed along. But those opportunities when you kind of look to the right and left and think, is anyone else going to say yes to this, or is it going to have to be me? And I've had a few of those moments where I've said, under the table, I've been squeezing my own hands to say, don't say yes, because, you can become very and deeply engaged, which I know you have done, and so have I. And yeah, I mean, they're really rewarding. But there's lots of work in all of that as well. So, so I am curious. We have to talk a little bit about technology, broader than what we have before, or maybe I should say more narrowly, which is your adoption of technology, Roger, and how you feel about technology. And there's sort of this running joke about you and your favorite personal device. So, rather than me outing you, I'm wondering if you could tell people about your experiences with your handheld device, the classic Blackberry, and why the Blackberry, and why so long to hang on to a Blackberry before letting it go.
Well, because I really liked it. I thought it was a great piece of technology. And for, in the early stages, I'm trying to think where I first got the Blackberry.
Yeah, you must have got that at the bank, right? Like, was that a bank?
I must have got it at BMO, yeah, and then carried it on from there, I think. Anyway, I did have the original Blackberry, and I really enjoyed using it. I got increasingly ridiculed about it from everybody that I came across that knew anything about IT, and I was told reliably, I think, Gigi, by you or by Kevin or by Richard Gottsmart, that it was only Susan Searle-Giroux and I that still had a Blackberry on campus. I thought, well, that's good. At least I'm in good company here.
Yeah, she is.
And then I came to realize when I started having grandchildren that this was a huge disadvantage, because the grandchildren were using iPhones, and I mean, they're still young, but I mean, they get used to them very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I was being cut out of conversations in the family because I had a Blackberry, and I thought, to hell with this. This Blackberry is going to have to going to have to be given up. So I went to Susan Chaugeroux and gave her my sincere apologies that I was going to leave her in isolation as the only BlackBerry holder on campus. She was one of the rare Starbucks drinkers. So
Yeah.
The fact that she had the only BlackBerry, and I moved over. It was I wouldn't say it was a painless journey, but it was a smooth journey. And now I use my iPhone. The thing that I will always remember was the note that you put out when I gave up my BlackBerry. That notification that you sent around had me laughing for a long while. My biggest disappointment with BlackBerry was that Alex, I said to Alex, you must call BlackBerry, and you must offer them the opportunity to buy back one of their original BlackBerries that's been well used for 20 plus years. I said, because I'm sure it's a collector's item, and I'm sure that they'll buy it back at least the cost of a new iPhone. Anyway, she called them and then she said, Roger, they don't find this funny. So I realized that this must be a dad joke, and I moved on.
Well, you know, what that story tells me, first of all, is we do really become married to our technology. I mean, like, it's very ingrained in the work that we do and the way we live our lives, and it is hard to change. And I often think about that as I, you know, invoke change on everybody at McMaster, one way or the other, in the direction that we go in. Somebody's going to have to give up something that they've either become really used to, or they really loved, or perhaps they were the ones who originally decided we should all have whatever that system or capability is. And then you bring change, and it's hard. Technology changes are not as hard, like you said. You adapt, we all adapt to them, but it does mean you have to, you know, widen your brain for a little while you make that change or adaptation. And yeah, so I mean, I think it's always good to remember these BlackBerry stories, because everybody's had that somewhere, maybe at different scales. There's different directions, but anyway, yeah. And I will blame, because why wouldn't I do this? I'm going to squarely put the notification that went out about you and your BlackBerry on Kevin DeCock, and you know that's who it was. He was the one who actually made a good jest about that. So he loves that story too. I think it's quite one of those good insider jokes.
I don't think I knew that was Kevin. I'm not surprised it was Kevin. He and I have had lots of jousts over the years, mainly about cricket.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. He is one of those quiet humor people, you know. He's sort of a behind the scenes kind of guy that way. So Roger, I know, I mean, obviously you're coming to, you've made the decision to retire. I don't think that's a secret for anybody at this point. So people who watch this will know that you are retiring from McMaster. And, you know, was there a particular thing or a particular, like, how do you make a decision like that? I guess that's an interesting thing for somebody like me who isn't going to get to retire for quite a while now. I'm always curious, like, what was the decision, if you're willing to share, that took you from I'm ready to fight every fight to, you know what, I think I'm ready to go?
Yeah, so the answer to that probably has multiple aspects to it, but you know this because I've told you before, this is the 50th year that I've worked. It's a long while. And my patient wife, her name is Ruth, has been with me for 47 years or so of that life. And, you know, much as it may be hard to believe, she actually wants to spend more time with me. So, so she's been bugging me for a long while. And, you know, what really put me over the top was, you know, the first grandchild arrived and I thought, I really need to spend more time with the family, really need to get to know Quinn. And then it wasn't long and the second one arrived. You know, I now have 5.5 grandchildren. And you know, they're arriving annually. And I really do love these kids, and I really do want to spend time with them. And
Nice.
so, you know, I would say a bit of subtle pressure, maybe not so subtle, from my dearly beloved, and a lot of attraction from 5.5 grandchildren. If you're wondering about how can somebody have half a grandchild, it's because my daughter-in-law is, I think, She's 7 months pregnant right now. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I put that together and I think it's lovely. And yes, you know, one of the things that we've all experienced as we've gone through the pandemic over the last 15 months is that recognition of how important family is and how important it is to be connected to something bigger than ourselves, and family and health, I think combined are the two critical components of a happy life, obviously. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think that's so nice. So, I mean, is there a particular new hobby or project or activity that you think you're going to immerse yourself into, or is that yet to be discovered?
Well, that's a good question. You partly know the answer to this. I am a genealogist by interest. So I've been building my family tree for, I want to say, 50 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So yeah, so I've got, I think pretty much every branch of the family tree built out. Furthest I've got back is 1490 something, 1492, I think it is.
Wow.
So I've got this family tree documented in, I'm going to say, a 3/4 written book. It's been in that stage for at least my McMaster career, if not longer, because it's very difficult to get a book of any sort finished. This is not going to be published, but it's going to be given to family members so that they've got it. So I'm going to be doing that. I play a lot of bridge, so I'm expecting to engage again in bridge. Some of you may remember Sandy Darling, who was my predecessor for back.
Okay.
He called me one day to say, what are you going to do when you retire? And I had a beer with him over at the faculty club, and he said, you should become a birder. So, and I do like watching birds, so he gave me all the birding technology. So I'm going to be joining Sandy, and you know, you also know that I'm a stamp collector. It goes with my age and my background, and I have a pretty complete collection of British stamps. So I shall finish off my collection of British stamps. So, and of course, somewhere in there, I'm going to be spending time in the swimming pool and at the cottage with my, by then, 6 grandchildren. So that I can spend a lot more time with them and enjoy them as they grow up.
That sounds like a really full and engaging life, Roger, and how nice and exciting for you that you've got so many of those interests. So back in the 1400s, so are you related to any famous people that we should know about? Is there blue blood back there somewhere? Are like any royalty? Anyone get their head cut off? Anything like that?
No, but no, there's nobody of that type. I mean, there are people that are sort of scions of the family that you know, you track down hoping that you're going to find out that, yeah, it's indeed somebody married the king or whatever. But no, what actually happens is you find out all sorts of things that you never really wanted to know, and and so then you're stuck in this moral dilemma. Now that you've found out X, whatever X is, are you going to allow that to die in history, or are you actually going to record it? So I have to be honest with you that I've let some things die in history.
Oh, interesting.
So not everything you learn is what you want to learn.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I think there's probably, I'm sure in all of our backgrounds, some things that we wouldn't want to know. I know my brother is the person in my family who's pursued some of that, not myself, probably more from time, but he traveled a lot. And so have you gone, you know, graveyard digging, not actual digging, but, you know, going through graveyards looking for people's headstones and things like that, because he's done some of that as well. And what I discovered, so, you know, just, it's an interesting thing, because I think in our minds, we think of everybody from the past as being very pious and correct, but there were a lot of people who were not married having children. I mean, I'm going to just make that statement. So, you know, there's a lot of broken branches on every tree. Don't you think that's true?
Well, I know it's true. Well, I know it's true. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories in relation to genealogy. I have gone around the world looking at graveyards for Ruth's family and for my family. One day in Oxfordshire, I hired a car and I said, Ruth, we're going to go to these two places. And the first one was a farm, and somebody with my name had leased the farmland in 1600 and something. So I said, I'm going to go knock on the farm door. And she said, you can't just go and knock on the farm door. I said, I can, watch me. So I parked the car at the end of the driveway. I said, I'm only going to be a few minutes because I'm sure there won't be anybody there. If there are, they won't see me. So down I go, and they said, oh, it's great to see you. Yes, we know about this family connection. They said, we've got all the records, and they went and dug them all out. She said, you've got to stay and have a cup of tea. I said, well, I can't. My wife's in the car down the road. So it was before the years of cell phones. So anyway, Ruth sat in the car at the end of the driveway for 2 hours while I went through this material. So I did that. And then I said, well, there's another place we've got to go to here. And it's a house it's on the road. I've looked it up on the map. It's actually on the road. And I said, it's another sign of the family. This particular group had 15 children in this little house. So we drove along and came past the house. It was a lovely little cottage. It was called Loaf Cottage. And there were 2 people in the garden. It was a lovely summer afternoon. And I said, Ruth, I'm going to stop and I'm going to talk to these people. And she said, no, you're not. I said, well, yes, I am. So I pulled up alongside them as they were gardening. And I said, oh, hi, how are you? And I introduced myself and told them why I was there. And she said, can't think what her name is now, but she said, oh, you need to come in. She said, you need to come in because we've done all the family history as well. And so in we go into Loaf Cottage, and she made tea and poured out some scones and cream. And Ruth and I had a delightful afternoon in the garden as we went through my family history that she had uncovered. It was fantastic.
That is great. Isn't that interesting? I love that. And actually, I think most people are quite thrilled to have someone come knocking on their door out of the blue who might have a connection in some way or another. So, okay, so you're going to be traipsing around Europe, knocking on doors, basically, as part of you're going to fit that between bridge, swimming, and
doing some consulting work for David.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I've done most of my. Most of my hunting. I have a little bit more to do, but very little. A little bit more to do in France, but other than that, not much to do. My name is French by background.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, I think it's exciting. I just hope for you that you have a very long and healthy retirement, Roger, and you get to do all the things that you want to do. And of course, you and I have talked about this. We're going to go out for beer at some point, if not more than once, over the time when you're retired as well. And you're going to be able to fill me up with all these wonderful adventures that you're going to go on. I hope that's true.
Yeah, I hope it's true too. It's been, Gayleen, it's been a real delight working with you and your team. It's been a great pleasure, as they say, working with you. Sometimes, being woken at 3 a.m. with the latest cyber incident isn't
That's probably not your favorite thing. I realize
isn't the highlight of my experience. And but you guys have been very determined, very dedicated, very professional, very accomplished, and we've got a lot done in the technology space in the last decade or so. And the investment that's being put into technology and process improvement at the university is testament to the excellent work that you guys have done in the projects that you've executed. So I'm absolutely delighted and very proud of the work that you've done. Delighted to have worked with so many of you for so long, and wish you all the very, very best in your careers going forward. If at any point in time there's anything I can do to help you, don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you, Roger. That's really generous. I know the McMaster IT community will miss you and will appreciate all that you've done for them over the last many years, because you have really had an influence on the direction of IT on campus across the board. And we're very fortunate that you've been able to be with us as long as you have. And yeah, we're excited to make you proud as we continue to move forward with all of the activities that everybody across campus is engaged in. So thank you for that very much. And thanks for making time for me today. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to you. So I look forward to our next chance to chat.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great pleasure. I'm glad we did this. Thanks very much. Keep well.